What is up, my friends? Kevin Shirka here, the Indiana Jones nerd yet again. And today we are going to do a full breakdown of everything we know about the new Indiana Jones movie that's coming out. And we're going to be looking at every bit of footage and every photograph. So we're going to try and get as complete of an answer as we possibly can here. So thank you for joining me, and we're gonna get started here as people roll in. So I obviously have this video, which is basically like a 10-minute trailer of the movie that I made. This is all of the footage of the film, officially released footage plus leaks and other things. So we're going to be taking a look at this as I walk you through the entire plot of the movie. Hello, everyone out there. Hello, Jake. Happy Friday. And so, yeah, of course, Disney, Lucasfilm, and Paramount is the distributor of this film. So I've been thinking maybe that we're going to get a fade into this mountain, which is Buccleuch Moor in Scotland, which is where the film did do some filming, and you may recognize this location from the movie Skyfall as well. It was in one of these valleys here that Bond and M stopped their car to kind of have a moment in that movie. So this mountain has been used in Indiana Jones 5. Just my speculation is that it's going to be the opening shot. But Indy is on some sort of adventure here, on some sort of a mission, along with the apparently British forces during World War II. This is in 1944, this opening segment of the film, which is going to be 10, maybe 20 minutes long. And eventually, Indy is going to be captured and brought to this Nazi stronghold. This is a castle filmed at Bamborough Castle, but perhaps doubling for Germany in this movie. And we can see the big banners there. This is a really cool castle. We were all very excited to see this castle when it was being prepared for the movie. Of course, there's a lot of World War II era set decorations. And then we got some fire, and we got some explosions also. And we're going to skip ahead a little bit here. And you can see a big caravan of military vehicles. There's, obviously motorcycles and trucks, but you can kind of see a tank in there right next to the canopy there. There's a little interesting tank. I think we have another footage. Here we go. So yeah, this is the tank that is going to be involved in the opening segment of the film, which I think looks pretty cool. I'm excited to see this used on screen. Alright, so here we see Indy for the first time in the footage that we have, I believe. He is in a disguise of a Nazi uniform. But he's been captured here. He has a bag over his head, and you can see an explosion goes off as he is being brought in here. And I'm not sure if this is an explosion from the Allied bombardment that we know is happening in the scene, or unless it's an explosion from the inside, because this looks like a shot from the same scene here. Unless these are supposed to be British special forces here, but we see some soldiers. They're inside a building, and there's an explosion that happens from inside of the building, from the floor beneath them. And where does this explosion come from exactly? Because it doesn't seem like... Unless somehow there's a bombardment hits like the side of the building and then explodes from the floor beneath them. But it seems like maybe this is something that Indy has planted, or maybe whatever the German secret project is has caused this explosion. Not sure. And here we get this beautiful shot of Indy the deep fake de-aging technology at work here, and it's done a terrific job. And it seems to me like he's been brought into the main hall of the castle here. If you see in the next shot, you can recognize the background is from Bamborough Castle, and we have matched that. And so here we have a first look at two of our key villains, in particular Mads Mikkelsen on the left there is going to be playing Jurgen Voller, and he's opening a crate here, and there's obviously something very important here, and you can see the flashlight turns towards the camera to create this glare effect. So it's kind of a signal to us that whatever's in this box is very important. Maybe this is one of the pieces of the Dial of Destiny itself. And of course, the flashlight is being held by another big villain and a famous actor. The character is Colonel Weber, and it's, of course, Thomas Kretschmann, who has made a name for himself playing Nazi characters throughout whatever the last 20, 30 years of his career has been. He was in The Pianist, Avengers, Valkyrie, all kinds of big characters here. So we don't have a lot of footage of him, of Thomas Kretschmann, but it's nice to see him in this film. And then here is a great look at the Mads Mikkelsen character, who is Dr. Jurgen Voller, and really exciting to see what he brings to this film. He obviously, the actor himself is a terrific actor. I loved him in Casino Royale and everything that he's done. So very excited to see this. He obviously has a major role in this film. He is the main villain, and we're going to be seeing a lot of him later on as well. But so far we haven't been given a ton of looks at him. And here we see more explosions. This was taken by a fan outside the castle during filming. A series of explosions inside the castle here, and it's possible that in this chaos Indy begins to make his escape, but the Nazis have a train which has obviously some major importance. We don't know, maybe it's possible that some of the artifacts are being kept on there. And we got a few good looks at the train here. You can see there's some artifacts being carried there, or some boxes of some sort at least. And then we have those terrific mounted guns there, which look really cool. But Indy is going after this train. So here we see him politely asking a guy to roll down his window so he can punch him in the face. That's wonderful. And this leads to a big chase sequence. And this is one picture from that. Got quite a few good pictures here. Not sure if the character standing there is the Thomas Kretschmann character. Might possibly be. But we can see a motorcycle with a sidecar coming up against a car here, which is like a sort of fancy car with the flags there on the front. A bit like a staff car. A few more pictures here, but eventually we see that Indy is involved in this scene. We can see him right here. He's on the sidecar of one of these motorcycles as the staff car is speeding after them in the background. And Indy barely makes a clean escape there as the car goes launching. And that's pretty exciting right there. We can see the car rolling, the explosion in the background. And I should have another shot of the more from the motorcycle, but I seem to have lost it. But here we skip ahead a little bit, and Indy is now on the motorcycle himself, on a single motorcycle. And this, of course, is a shot which was picked up by a cameraman about 2 years ago during the shoot. And this is Harrison Ford, a Harrison Ford mask. So this is a stuntman wearing a mask. It's not actually Mr. Ford himself. So a combination of practical effects and deep fake and more modern special effects in order to create the young Indy that we're going to see in the film here. And here's a look at that train. Beautiful train. Really exciting to see. And it's definitely going to be a major set piece of this film. This is a wonderful shot. This is, of course, not part of the film, but just moving the train around during the daylight, you can kind of get a nice look at it. And they, of course, covered up a lot of the insignia with paper here because they don't want to be roaming around the British countryside with a bunch of swastikas out. So you might notice that there. And here we are. So here's Indy, still in a Nazi uniform, running on top of the train. Now it seems like he's just past the mounted guns. So it's possible maybe that Indy has chased the train on a motorcycle and then gotten on the train and is now, maybe he's taken care of the mounted gun and now he's running on top of the train towards his next objective. And we can see that he's found his gear, and you can tell if you look in the top right corner of the screen, you can see landscape whizzing by through the window. So that's how I know that this scene is taking place here on board this train. And great little shot here introducing all of Indy's gear, the iconic hat and the whip, and his satchel bag with his jacket and all of those things. And here's another great shot, maybe the first shot of the film with Indy in his full gear. And then here we have some shots from the latest trailer. There does seem to be a fight on top of the train, which we'll get into that a little bit later. But here's a moment still inside. This is with Indy, and the Toby Jones character Basil is behind him there. And a great little wonderful moment, a nice classic sort of Indiana Jones, Harrison Ford smile here. And he's come up against Mads Mikkelsen, the character Dr. Voller, and this is a wonderful little moment from this newest trailer where Indy puts his hat up and then gives him a big whack. And so, setting up their rivalry, which is going to be important in this film. And then here we see a good look at that mounted gun going off. And another explosion here destroys that mounted gun. So a little bit hard to say what order this is all taking place here. And here we see a reaction of Indy to that, which was in the latest trailer. And there are a few little shots which were in the leaked D23 trailer, which were not in either of the subsequent trailers. So this is one of those. So that's why the quality is so poor on these. You can see Basil, and there's an airplane flying over above, and he's reacting to that. And then this is probably later. This looks like now they're on top of the train. While the previous shot, I think they were on the bed of the train. And so he's yelling for Indy. We can see there's a lot of action going on here. I'm not sure if he's yelling because of the tunnel that we saw earlier, but here we can see several Germans on the side of the train, which kind of reminds me of Raiders of the Lost Ark when you had the Germans climbing on the side of the truck there. And this is going to be a great classic Indiana Jones set piece. And then we can see the train hitting brakes in some rarely seen footage here. And then here is a nice shot of the Thomas Kretschmann character, Colonel Weber, walking through the clouds here, through the mist, on top of the train, as he's coming in the path of Indy and Basil. And there is another version of this trailer on, on Disney Plus. They have this same trailer that this came from, but for some reason in their version the shot is a little bit more clear, and so you can see in that version of the trailer clearly that this is Colonel Weber, the Thomas Kretschmann character, but here you can't really tell. It's just kind of left in mystery. But this is a nice little standoff here and sets up a big fight between Indy and the Colonel, which of course, every Indiana Jones movie has to have a big fight between Indy and a big villain. And this particular villain, he's not maybe the hulking like Pat Roach style, but he is a good match for Indy, kind of like Colonel Vogel was in Last Crusade. And so this is going to be a great fight here on top of this train. Maybe the last action moment of this opening sequence of the film before we time jump, because the rest of the footage that we have here, it looks like it's the end of the fighting. Indy and Basil look up and they see a bunch of presumably British paratroopers coming in, and then the last scene that we have is Indy and Basil underneath this bridge, which was filmed at the Letterfoot Viaduct in England. And let's skip ahead here. Here we are. Here's a look at Indy there. And, of course, Harrison Ford shot this with markers on his face because he's being de-aged for this scene. And we can see, of course, that Basil is holding something here. And I'm not sure if we have the other shot of that. Here we are. So this seems to be probably the Dial of Destiny or part of the Dial of Destiny. We still don't know 100% everything about this artifact, if this is a multi-piece item, because we've seen kind of pieces of this throughout the footage that we have here. So Basil seems to be in possession of the artifact. Probably the Nazis had it and they took it off of the train there. And yep, here's more footage of them, more pictures, I should say. And then here is from the latest trailer. It shows the end of this scene looks like where Indy and Basil have apparently had a moment down there together, and now they're heading back up to the train, and we see that the British are in command of the train. You can see the Union Jack flying up there. And a nice shot. Beautiful cinematography there. Wonderful cinematography throughout this film, by the way. And then we have a scene here in Oxford, and it's a little bit unclear to me where in the film this does take place. Because, so obviously there are some time travel elements to this film going on here. And it's not clear to me, is this something that Indy is going to visit the scene late in the film during like time travel elements, time travel segments of the movie? Or does this take place during World War II, or does this take place maybe in the 1950s, maybe after the World War II segment we get a jump to like the mid-50s, and because I've been told that a lot of these cars are 1950s era, not 1940s. That's what I've been told. So they're thinking that maybe this could possibly be a scene that takes place after the World War II segment, but before we jump to 1969. The rumor or the info that we have here, which is from a casting, not a casting, but a location scout request. They were looking for a home in Oxford for a scene, and they describe the scene where Indy comes into the room. It comes into the house of a colleague who has barricaded himself in one of the rooms, and Indy breaks down the barricade to talk to him, basically. But there's a young girl who's in this scene who is, we believe, the young version of the Phoebe Waller-Bridge character, the young Helena. So it's possible that Helena is maybe the daughter of Basil, and that maybe she'll be first seen here in this part of the film. And Basil also has a housekeeper, apparently. So here's a few shots of that, and then now we skip ahead to 1969, and this is where a good chunk of the film is going to take place. This is the kind of, in each Indiana Jones film, you have the opening scene, and then you get to the chunk of the movie, and this is it right here. And as always, we are brought to the classroom, and we see Indy teaching archaeology, except this is his final day as an archaeology professor, based on what we've been told. And one thing you might notice is on the far right here, you can see one person sitting alone in that kind of upper corner of the screen there, and that, we believe, is Helena, the Phoebe Waller-Bridge character, all grown up now. And she seems to have come here to talk to Indy about something, unless she is like his permanent assistant, like a teaching assistant. But we think that she has maybe come here separately to talk to Indy about something. And someone actually found this picture that he's pointing at online. I want to say it's like a Jewish like pottery or something, but it doesn't seem to be important to the story. And so here's another shot of Indy in his classroom. Looks like the 60s to me. And then here's a look at Indy's office and treasure trove of all the little artifacts that he's found over the years. And this should be an exciting little scene, I think, because even though we did see it in Last Crusade briefly, like a room similar to this, but it would be cool to come into this scene and have pieces that we recognize from the previous movies. I mean, obviously a lot of those items are, the ones that he found are in a museum, and the big ones are all usually lost at the end of the film. But it would be a good opportunity here to have, some sort of a callback to some of his past adventures. And by the way, he is now at Hunter College. He's not at Marshall College anymore. So he's at Hunter College, which is an actual real life college in New York. So that's how we know that he's in New York for sure here. And here's another look at Helena. This is our best look at her so far. And you can see that she has the Dial of Destiny there. But apparently it must not be the whole dial or something, because we see a scene later where they find what seems to be a piece of it. So it's unclear what is going on with the dial. And then here is elsewhere in New York. Indy is walking around in the town and heading to the subway station. And here's another shot of that same scene. And Indy eventually is going to make his way, along with Helena, to an area where they're celebrating the arrival of the Apollo 11 astronauts from the moon. But Indy is being followed by these two charming fellows, Kleber right in the middle, played by Boyd Holbrook, and on the far left you'll see Hawk, who is played by Oliver Richters. And these two are working for the CIA, but in actuality are loyal to the Nazis, as far as we can tell. And so here, as we said, this is welcoming the Apollo 11 astronauts. There's a little ceremony for them. There's going to be a parade. There's a lot of media coverage of this event here. A lot of great extras, well-dressed for 1969. And here we can see a little stage. Maybe there's going to be some sort of a speech given of some sort. And you can see Hawk there, towering over everybody else in that crowd. And this was one of the first glimpses of him that we saw. So something's going to go on in this little area here, and Indy is going to receive this clock as like a retirement gift, but also symbolically, I think, is going to be representing the time travel elements of this movie. And it's possible maybe there's something more to this clock. Maybe there's something hidden inside it. I don't know. But we get a few shots of this clock, but not too many. Here's a look at Helena. Apparently, Indy is going to get kidnapped at some point during this scene, and so she's trying to follow him, it looks like. And here we can see the blue van that Indy is kidnapped in. And it's going to drive by there. And then our next shot is going to be, they're going to stop in front of, here we are, they're going to stop in front of a protest here. This is a Vietnam War protest. And now let's go back and look at some of these guys as they get out of the car. So here we can see Indy with the goons that I mentioned. There's a third goon as well. And then we have Shawnette Renee Wilson, who is playing... sorry, the name escapes me at the moment. But Shawnette Renee Wilson here is playing a CIA handler. She's going to be the handler of the Mads Mikkelsen character. And give me 1 second. I just want to pull up her name really quick. Just to be thorough here. I want to say she's Major something. There we go. Agent Mason. That's what her name is. So this is Agent Mason, played by Shawnette Renee Wilson. You might recognize her from Black Panther, where she played one of the guards. So we haven't seen a lot of her. This is the only scene that we have actually seen her in terms of footage and leaked photographs, but I think that she is gonna have an important part to play later in this story, and when we get there, I'll tell you what my theory is. So that's a look at her. She is, the American CIA agent who is in charge of keeping all of these Nazis in line, apparently. And so here we can see that she's telling her men to bring Indy through the protest, which is the direction that they need to go, apparently. And things start to get pretty hairy here. And this is a great little moment that was captured by onlookers. One of our best leaked moments. Indy fights back, and a hilarious moment here. As, Hawk being the big kind of towering Pat Roach type character in this film is unfazed by Indy's antics. That's pretty funny. And you may notice that the actor playing Hawk, he's wearing, if you look at his shoes, you'll see that he has a black shoe and a white shoe. There's a scene coming up where he got injured, and that's why he's wearing that tennis shoe there. And I'll show you that in one moment when we get there. And then there's a shot here. Holbrook fires his gun, But kind of peculiarly, um, we clearly see Hawk walking after Indy, but then the gunshot is fired here, and there's no sign of. Oh, there I see Hawk. He's like directly behind Indy. Um, so something happens in here to change the geography, I guess. Um, and then our next shot is gonna be Indy running away even further. You can still see some of those protesters in the background there. But Indy is running away there. A lot of people getting flashbacks to the Jack Ryan movies from this shot right here. And this brings Indy back to the parade. And this is a massive parade. They redecorated, several blocks of Glasgow to make it look like 1960s New York. Set it up for this big parade sequence here. You can see everything going on here, and you might notice Indy is on a horse. He walks into the middle of the square, right up there at the intersection. If you can see him, and then here is another shot of Indy on his horse there, and wonderful looking scene here with all of the confetti and the American flags. I think it's going to be a pretty cool, fun little sequence. But Mr. Clobber here, played by Boyd Holbrook, is hot on his heels on a motorcycle. So you're going to have Indy on horse, chased by Clobber on the motorcycle. Here's another look at Indy. And here's a great shot. And then here on the right, you can see that Hawk is now in control of a parade queen's vehicle. And so Indy is being pursued through this parade by two different villains. And here's another look at the motorcycle chasing after him. You can see the parade in motion, gives you a good sense of what's going on. And then this is a shot, maybe this might happen slightly earlier. This is going to be Hawk chasing after Indy on foot, and he crashes through a bunch of these sailors here. And there was another take of the shot where he actually fell down and he had to get on crutches, and we saw him on crutches for at several points throughout the production after this. So this is where the injury was occurred, where he that he was wearing that tennis shoe I showed you earlier. And now here we see one of the floats, and this has a big representation of the moon on it. And a lot of people, myself included, have speculated that this is somehow going to be used as a Raiders of the Lost Ark reference. Of course, the most famous Indiana Jones movie moment of all time was when that big boulder in Raiders of the Lost Ark started rolling after him. So maybe this moon here is somehow going to fall off of the float and be used as some sort of a Indiana Jones reference here, which would be a nice little call out. And here's another shot of Hawk. Sorry, a few of my clips here were a little out of order. So here's a shot of him cutting off Indy. And here's another nice little moment. You can see the queen screaming there. That's awesome. And here's more of Indy as he races away, and he's gonna go right through this banner here. and then eventually makes his way to the subway, where he narrowly dodges a train. And then we did have some more shots of Ford in the same outfit here, looking a little bit more disheveled though. So these are apparently later that night. There's going to be more scenes of him in New York, and we also know that he has some scenes with Sallah here, and this appears to be at JFK Airport, and you can see the taxi cab in the background there. So my theory is that Sallah is now a teacher or the dean at Hunter College. So there's a lot of dialogue we got in the first trailer, which is Sallah saying that he misses the desert and the sea and all of these things, and he wants to go on adventures again. He misses those days. So my theory is that he is now living in New York as an academic, as a teacher. So that's what his expertise is being used for these days, but the times of adventures are over for him. But not for Mr. Indiana Jones. Those days have come and gone, says Indy. Perhaps not. And then he says, "Give him hell, Indiana Jones." And this sends Indy off on his next adventure, which is going to be in Morocco, I believe. This was all filmed in Fez, Morocco, and I believe that this will be the next sequence in the film after the parade chase and all of that in New York. And you can see Indy with Helena again here. Although this particular shot maybe happens a little bit later in this scene. First, we're going to have a look at Indy inside this restaurant here. So there is something going on here. There's a bunch of assassins and bad guys here. It looks like maybe there's some sort of an auction going on. Maybe they're auctioning off like a piece of this Dial of Destiny. And Helena is trying to do things her way, but Indy comes in and is trying to do, things the typical Indiana Jones way that gets into his nerves. So that's a funny moment there. But then the Nazis crash the party. Indy says, "You." And now we see, finally, a look at the older version of Jürgen Voller, the Mads Mikkelsen character here. And so, as we kind of alluded to before, this character is now working for NASA, working with the U.S. government, and he has, helped NASA to land a man on the moon, and so they must be really happy with him, and so they're being duped by him probably to help out on whatever this latest scheme is of his. And what they don't know is, what the Americans don't know, in that they are probably helping him in some way, is that his plan is to use some artifact to time travel to basically change the past so that the Nazis won the war. So he's here in Morocco, and presumably they're trying to get their hands on one of these pieces for the Dial of Destiny. And in the trailer, there's just a nice little moment where they connect this scene with the scene of them on the train in the opening segment of the film. And here we can see Clobber, one of the key henchmen, looking intimidating over Indy's shoulder there. Boyd Holbrook played a sort of similar character in Logan, which was a similar hero at sunset type of film from director James Mangold. So these are two of the important villains of this movie. And Indy has a great line, "Remind me, are you still a Nazi?" Like, he says it much better than I said it, though, of course. And then later we see that those two characters are not in the scene any longer, and Helena is not in the scene here either at this point. So presumably they have taken the item and left, and now Indy is left to fend for himself against all of these gangsters. And he starts throwing the whip around, causing a lot of chaos. Everyone's jumping around. And you can see Hawk there. So presumably he has been left here to finish the job. And you may also notice immediately to the right of Hawk, there's a young boy there wearing like a white shirt and has curly hair. He ducks down pretty quick. And this is a character who is going to be important in this film. He's a young, presumably Moroccan boy. He's played by a French actor who we finally identified after many, many months. And so we'll be seeing more of him as this story goes on. But for now, we're focusing on this scene. So, yeah, you can see there's someone, there's like a cowboy. There's maybe a African warlord or something there. There's like some Asian people there. Like people all walks of life, but apparently all assassins. Okay, so here is Helena. I didn't notice her before, but you can see Helena there in the red. So this may or may not take place before the scene with Mads Mikkelsen in it. And you can see that her shirt is ripped now. Which it was not ripped earlier, but we did have the one shot which I showed you, which is her and Indy. The very first shot that I showed you when we started this Morocco segment was where her shirt is ripped. Indy says, "Get back!" And then they all pull out their guns, and this is a great funny moment. Look at all these guys here. And another one to notice is on the far left here, wearing the black shirt. That is an actor. Anthony and Gruber, who became really famous on YouTube like 10-15 years ago for making impersonations of Harrison Ford characters, and many characters besides Harrison Ford, but in particular his Han Solo and his Indiana Jones impersonations were really popular videos, and a lot of people had said that he should take over for those two characters, and people were pretty disappointed that he did not get the part for Solo. But now he is here. He actually has worked with Harrison Ford in another film. He played young Harrison Ford in The Age of Adeline. And so now here's a second film where this Harrison Ford lookalike and impersonator is acting with Ford himself. And, could this be a clue that they're involving this kid in the franchise now so that they're grooming him to be the next Indiana Jones? I would love to see it. I think that the franchise has a lot of opportunity to keep going, and there's a lot of good stuff that can be done with that. So I would love to see it. I know a lot of people think that the series should end with Harrison Ford, but I'd be excited, and I am excited to see him involved here. And a great funny moment here. Harrison Ford ducks out of the way. And then here we are later. Indy and Helena are making a break for it, and they're being pursued by some men on motorcycles. And we have a few shots of this scene here. But then I think probably our young French Moroccan boy I mentioned comes to help them, because the next shot that we see is the three of them together, and they're on one of these auto rickshaws, or tuk-tuks as they call them. So I think our young boy here is going to be trying to help him out here, and maybe brings him this. But we see Indy is driving this rickshaw at the start. Alright, and then here is a vehicle, cuts them off as they're backing through a marketplace. And there's some shots fired, and then we have maybe outside the marketplace. We see there's a camel in the background, a nice little area here. And Indy cuts through, and the green vehicle cuts through the marketplace right behind him. And they're being pursued by several motorcycles still. And we have a lot of great footage of this segment. This is one of the best. I mean, this is probably the best scene in terms of leaked footage. Like, we have so many shots of this chase. Here's a scene right here. Indy at this point seems to be alone in the in driving the vehicle, if I'm not mistaken. Perhaps not alone, but Indy is still driving here, and you can see there's a man on top of the car. And notice the camera, which is in that center divider. Look at the movement of the camera here as he turns around, as the guy is on top of the thing. It's going to be a really cool shot. The green car comes speeding through. That's going to be a great, great moment. And here's another shot inside this sort of narrow alleyways of the city. And then later, here for sure, Indy is alone driving. There's no one else in the vehicle at that point. But there's a shot here. This is Indy alone, but then there's another tuk-tuk here, which is being driven by Helena, and our young boy is there as well. And this young boy, we originally heard his name was Hynix, but then later we heard maybe his name is Teddy, but we don't have a name for him yet, for sure. And here's a great shot of the two side by side in the trailer there. And of course we're going to get a moment where Indy jumps to avoid this oncoming van here. And here we are again, presumably right after that, with the green car right on his heels, literally, as he's putting his feet on top of the roof to not get crushed. Here's a nice shot of these characters reacting. It looks like they're surrounded by enemies at this point. Alright, here we are, and this is probably that very moment. You can see cars on either side. And here's a few more little seconds, which were from the D23 trailer. And here's what Indy's looking at is Mr. Hawk there with a Tommy gun. And Indy kicks it away. Perfect timing. And here's another look at what's going on inside the alleyways there. And then here is a moment where we see that Hynix is now driving the tuk-tuk. And we see this black car here. This black car seems to be the one that maybe Mads Mikkelsen is in. And this is kind of an outtake. I don't think this was supposed to happen. The tuk-tuk here strikes an extra, a pedestrian in the scene, and so the scene had to be stopped right there. But they were okay, thankfully. And so here's another look at Indy through the rearview mirror of one of these vehicles. And here you can see what he's reaching out at. It's Helena is now on the black car, and they separate. Sorry, that's not supposed to be doing that. Alright, and here's a good look at what's going on here. It looks like Mads Mikkelsen is there. He has some sort of a case, presumably, that has the all-important piece in it. And Helena here is trying to get that from him. And we have another great shot here, which was from the roof that somebody took. You can see the cars get separated. Nice little moment here. And one more. This is yet another similar shot of the cars getting separated. And this is just one last little clip of the cars coming to a stop here as they were filming. And then this seems to be the very end of the scene as the three characters in their totally beat up auto rickshaw here are recovering from that incredible chase, apparently. Alright, and now we are going to move to Sicily. And we've had a good chunk of the film filmed in Sicily. There are a few different locations that we believe they're all doubling for the city of Syracuse. So I don't remember what town this was shot in, but this was shot in a smaller coastal town. A few of these little signs and things here. And you can see references to Syracuse on the right there. There's a Archimedes statue. A little picture of the Neapolis Archaeological Park where the film did some shooting. Here's our look at our young boy here on top of a truck. Indy and Helena are there as well. And they're on their way to meet Indy's good friend, who is played by Antonio Banderas here. And you can definitely tell from the smile they're longtime friends. And this is a nice moment with those iconic actors here together. And Antonio Banderas seems a very charming fellow here. And gets a good smile out of Helena. And Antonio Banderas is the captain of a boat, and Indy's asking him for some sort of help. Apparently, there's something heavy on his mind. We don't know what's going on here exactly, why he's in such deep thought. But we do see that he is helping Indy and the gang to do some underwater exploring here. And you can see they're all in scuba gear, getting ready to go under the water. And we do have some shots of Mads Mikkelsen on this boat as well. So, it's unclear exactly what's going on. It's possible maybe the Nazis follow Indy and commandeer this boat somehow. But yeah, somehow the Nazis are there. And then we have quite a few little shots under the water here. And you can see this looks like an ancient, like Roman or Greek boat that they're looking at. And we have a similar looking boat which is at the end of the film is going to show up during the scenes that take place in ancient Syracuse. So there's some sort of connection, maybe something about this boat and what happens to it in the scenes at the end of the film. It'll be interesting to see how that all lines up. And here we see they're pulling like a chest being held from somebody, and a bunch of eels come out of the mouth. So first of all, probably something, maybe a piece of the dial is in this chest. Something very important, obviously. And then with these eels, these are kind of, maybe this is the snakes of this movie. You know, every Indiana Jones movie has to have like a snake or bugs or something. So this maybe is that moment. We're going to get a bunch of eels coming out of the skeleton, which is a pretty cool shot. And then here we see Hawk. And Hawk has been handcuffed to something down here underwater. And this is we don't have any more footage of him in later scenes, so it's possible this may be where he meets his demise. And maybe there's going to be a big scary fight between him and Indy underwater. Underwater is, is pretty scary. Like, to have a fight down there because you have the extra danger of drowning. So gonna be an intense scene, I think. And then here we have, it looks like whatever the chest was is there, and somebody is carrying it. I don't know if this is Indy or who it is, but they're making a quick escape here back to the surface using some sort of propulsion. Alright, and now we're seeing a lot of the stuff that was filmed in Cefalù. This is like a beautiful city, has a big, this is the square of the big Norman cathedral that was there. And you can see there's a procession going on in the background. We don't know, some sort of, maybe not a funeral, but like a religious procession, like they're carrying some sort of a relic or something through there. And here's a look at a bunch of people sitting on the steps. We can see Helena is there, and there's another girl sitting next to her, which I think is just the stand-in for lighting purposes, but from what I have heard, it's supposed to be Helena and the young Moroccan boy sitting on the steps. They're talking about something, having a sandwich. That's all we know about this moment. And here's a shot which is mostly obscured from the D23 trailer there. And so Indy's going to go off and buy some equipment because they're going to have to go do some exploring up in the mountains. And here you can see some of the gear that he got. And here, check out this shot of Indy. If you look at his satchel pouch right there, you can see a little outline of something inside, sort of like a six-sided little shape there, which might be the Dial of Destiny that we've been seeing. And we got a few more shots of Ford in this area, and we also have some shots of Mads Mikkelsen on the scene at this location. And then here's another blue van, which this particular shot, this is not an actual shot from the film. These are just the actors warming up for something. But from what we understand, the young Moroccan boy is going to be kidnapped by the Nazis here and put in this blue van. And as it speeds away, Indy is going to jump in a wedding car, which is a scene that was deleted from an early script of Indiana Jones 4. Indy is going to chase after them in this wedding car here, which is a fun little moment, I think. Here's a look at that. And they're going to go through like a little carnival for kids at the seaside there, and maybe head in the direction of the harbor. And we also know there's this boat, and we have a few shots of Indy on this boat, and we're not sure if this takes place at this point in the film or how it fits in exactly, but we do have some shots of Indy on this boat here as well. Alright, and this is the Doric Temple of Segesta. Now, in the film, there's a big mountain right behind the city of Cefalù. So I think that in the film, probably this temple is going to be on top of that mountain. And so we got some good... This is beautiful. Beautiful setting right here. Here's a look at that blue vehicle, and the vehicle that was driving Mads Mikkelsen is there as well. So they're at this location at some point also. And so we have a few shots of a tour group here, and Indy and Helena are in the area hanging out, but they kind of break away from that, and they start trying to check out something going on down below there. They seem to notice something, and according to eyewitnesses, when the film was shooting in Syracuse, they shot at the Neapolis Archaeological Park, including a scene where the two of them enter this cave, which is the Ear of Dionysus. And this is like a massive cave, obviously, and I think it's going to lead into this segment of the film, which we've seen quite a bit of this moment where Indy and Helena are exploring inside this cave here, and there's this bridge over some running water, of course. And we had this famous picture. It was like the first official picture of the film. And here's a look at them walking over the bridge. And then we got a bunch of statues here. It looks like one of them in the background there is, the globe. And I think there's a moment later when we see Atlas holding the globe. But then there's another statue in the foreground as well. Here's Indy looking at one of the statues. Here's Helena looking at one. Here we see Indy and Helena pulling the globe down from Atlas's grasp here, and this is another moment which is kind of seen as maybe a reference to Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, and that it's like essentially a giant boulder. And then we have a moment here where they're inside like a body of water, but suddenly something gives way and they fall down, and maybe they're swept down. And then here is another shot, apparently inside this scene here. Definitely old Indy hands, and he seems to be finding the dial or a piece of the dial. So kind of a big mystery of what are all of these things that we keep finding? Is it just one item that is looping through time somehow, or is there another story to all this? Are these different parts of the same item maybe? Very interesting. Alright, and then Indy has his line here. I've seen a lot of... I don't believe in magic, but I've seen a few things in my life that makes me... Like, it's not what you believe, it's how hard you believe it, all of that. And here we go. He says that line, and here we are. Alright, and then here... Alright, so now... So that's the end of the 1969 segment of the film. Like, that's all the footage that I have of that. So the rest of what I have here ahead of us is the time travel stuff. So it seems that Indy and Helena, and presumably Mads Mikkelsen, are going to first be going to 1944 again. Because we have scenes here set in World War II. I'm sure Mads Mikkelsen is like the one who is instigating that. Probably he got the artifact and now he's using it to travel to 1944 to help the Nazis win the war somehow. So here's an airplane. It's like a German bomber, Henkel, I think it's called. And you can clearly see old Indy in the foreground there. So it looks like he's been captured and is going to be brought on board this flight here. And now sort of the sort of peculiar thing is that I'm scratching my head over is this like, because there's two time travels happening here. First they travel to 1944, and then we're going to see a scene where they travel to ancient Syracuse. So if they got the device which has the time travel element, why do they have to travel to ancient Syracuse? What are they trying to accomplish there? And that's something that's not clear, but it is what's going on apparently. So there's a look again at that. And then here we see Helena on a motorcycle bike chasing after that plane on the runway. And we have another shot of her here, which was in the D23 trailer only. And then we have this shot here, which is her, looks like climbing up into the aircraft. And then we did have a moment here in this new trailer, which is from this scene. Well, first of all, this is the cockpit view. Presumably the time portal has been activated, and we're looking at the time portal here. A lot of people have called this the Millennium Falcon shot. And of course, the Millennium Falcon's design was based off of this design. So it makes sense. And then here we see later, it's now daytime, and Helena and a Nazi are fighting it out over the water here, over this open door. And you can see a close call there. And now here we get a good look at the aircraft flying, and there's another aircraft which is behind them there, and the one behind them is like a much more modern looking one. So my theory is that the second plane back there is Agent Weber, is the Shawnette Renee Wilson character, who was the CIA handler of Mads Mikkelsen. And that maybe she has followed these guys through time in order to stop them from changing the past. And so she's going to try and shoot down this plane. That's just my guess. I have no evidence of this at all. But it seems like her character is someone important enough to the story. It seems like she has some role to play. And I just get kind of the sense that this is the scene where we see her again. So it's shooting at the Nazi plane. We're gonna see that it does hit the plane, and here we see, looks like the plane's going down now. Indy says, "What are you doing here?" She says, "Rescuing you." Indy throws on a parachute, and they're gonna have to make a jump for it here. She grabs his hat to prevent it from being lost, which is a fun little moment. And then they're gonna drop out of the plane. And here's a nice shot. You can see that there's a big explosion on the engine of the right wing. They go free falling, and then here we see. So this is filmed at Tunara del Seco. And it's obviously been more. There's been some CGI work here. I just want to compare this really quick to Cefalù. So it's not the. So it's not like a perfect match, but there is a mountain here behind the city of Cefalù. So I think that this city was chosen in part to match this location, which also has a mountain behind it. And I believe that both of these are representing the city of Syracuse, and that the ancient Battle of Syracuse from 212 BC is the theme of this movie, that this is all revolving around. And you can see here in the water there's a bunch of ancient era ships, so it looks like it is probably the So yeah, you can see it gets cut off, but you can see enough that it looks like it's an ancient, Greek-Roman city of Syracuse there, and yeah, there's a battle going on, and we're gonna see more of this in pictures taken from the Tunara del Seco set. This is Tunara del Seco right here, which was an old factory that looks very old, and is a great location that they found for the film. But peculiarly had this downed World War II aircraft here, which at the time we were really surprised by this. Now we know that it's the same German bomber that they parachute out of. And then here we have Indiana Jones and Helena. They've just landed from their parachute drop. Helena is going to fetch Indy's hat. They're kind of looking around. All right, and here is a shot of this location when it was being filmed. And you can see that there is a downed aircraft in the front right corner. Sorry, in the front left corner is the downed German aircraft. Where in the front right corner we have these ancient era boats and a bunch of warriors fighting. And then a third airplane is in the upper corner there, which I think is probably the same one that we saw in that clip that was published during the Super Bowl of the two aircrafts in the clouds. So I think that that Agent Weber has somehow followed them in time here. And now we got a few shots of some of these ancient... these must be ancient Romans since they're in the boat. And maybe this is going to be the same boat that we see later in the film. You know, it's interesting to wonder maybe if they have... This boat is carrying the box that the crate that they find something in later. And then here's some more shots from this location, and here we can really see evidence of the battle. They're all ready to go. They're obviously not going to be wearing their face masks during the shot, but here we see a picture of the men fighting. It's Greek, the Greek men of Syracuse against the Roman invaders, which was what the Battle of Syracuse was. And let's see if we have more shots of that. No, but we have a few shots from the city of Syracuse itself. This is Castello Manice, which is a historical castle and citadel right on the edge of the ocean, which is probably being used, to represent the battle, a citadel in the Battle of Syracuse, although this particular building was not around back then. This is, something that was built in the last 100 years. But, for our purposes, it's going to do the trick. And you can see those massive ballistas there. So this is clearly a city that's ready to go, ready to do some war. Alright, and here's another look inside the same courtyard of that castle there. And then I think this is the last thing that we have. This is a leaked shot from outside Castello Manice. And you can see there's somebody with a sword. They come out, they point out their sword towards somebody. And then they do it again. They do it faster. They point out as if they saw somebody, and then they run out. So who knows? Maybe this is like the lookout, and they notice something. But that I believe is it. I think this is just a shot of that citadel where it was all filmed, that last scene. But this is the last of the footage. So that's the entire movie. That's everything that we have that has been leaked. So that's the entire breakdown. I hope you guys enjoyed my breakdown. I definitely love to keep putting out content like this for you guys. I'm so excited about this movie, as you all know. So do make sure you hit that like button. Please subscribe so I can keep you guys informed of all the news to come. So thank you so much, as always, for watching, and I wish you all fortune and glory.